So now, let's see. All right. So I have no idea how it's spotlighting here, but. All right. So anyways, welcome to the Tubbables book launch for John Roche live in Placitas, New Mexico at the Poetry Playhouse. So this is an in-person event. We also have some readers in our little Zoom audience that are going to be joining us. So but I just want to say John has worked hard on this book, and I've encouraged him to do a book. So I'm glad it's launched by Poetry Playhouse Publications, and you can find it online and in person. I'm gonna start by reading one poem, a very short one, and then we're going to have Larry Goodell come up and say a few words. Larry, our Larry from Placitas.
I want to introduce.
And John will introduce Larry. And then after that, we're going to have Anna, who is the artist for this wonderful cover and took these vague recollections of words and descriptions and made it just this awesome. And Anna, we have a cake that has this. We'll post a photo later. It's fun.
That's amazing.
And then we'll have and Anna, you're in Canada. In what city? Toronto. And then we'll have Kitty Jospé from Rochester, New York, read a poem. And then we have Stuart from Scotland joining us. And when they're reading, I'll turn the laptop around so you can listen. And then you can always do the recording. And then John will read. So, all right. So before John comes on here, I want to read a poem called, it's really cool. He has a section in here that are like dictionary doggerel. So they're alphabetical with A's and B's all the way, almost all of the alphabet. So this one caught my attention. It's called Bevy on page 5, because we have a bevy of quail in our back bush back there. And they are so cute. They come out and they feed in the morning and afternoon. And sometimes we see the little babies come out. And so a bevy can be a group. It could be a group of birds, or I thought it could be a group of poets and readers. So we have a nice bevy of people here today. All right. So this is it. A bevy of newly hatched quail chicks is the cutest damn thing you'll see in all your long life. Not a bevy of pearls, not a bevy of bathing beauties, just a bevy of newly hatched quail chicks, a peckin' and a scurrying. So for that. All right, John. And if you want to walk around this way, for them. Cool. I've got this spotlighted so far.
Good.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Jules. And yes, we have quite a lot of wildlife out here in Placitas, bobcats and roadrunners and everything. And we even have an ornithologist in the audience, Janet Ruth, who will correct all of our bird poems.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to just say a couple of things about the intent of the book, and also again to thank Anna Vanessa Latzer in Toronto, Ontario, who had been a student of mine, not in art, of course, because I'm not an artist, at RIT. It was an illustration major, I believe. And and she makes these incredible comic books and graphic publications. And so when I was thinking of something that would have the right kind of, I don't know, otherworldly, quirky quality, I immediately thought of Anna, and she did an enormous job here. So, and I also want to thank Denise Weaver Ross, who couldn't be here today. She has another art event. And Denise is our Poetry Playhouse Publications design editor, and always is so helpful in putting the books, physically putting the books together, designing books. And again, thanking Jules for all she's done with this publication and with everything. And I'm so excited because it's, this is my first book since 2020. And when my Joe Rides Again book and Jules' Atomic Paradise came out, it was in the height of the pandemic, and we were not able to have live book launches, and it's just so much fun to do so again. We had one a month ago with Deb Coy's Super Crone, published by Poetry Playhouse Publications. So it's really great to see people here in person, and also, though, Zoom has also brought us a whole other group of friends from around the world. So thank you all who are viewing it either on Zoom or live streamed later. So this book, as many of you who know me know, I'm just a little bit obsessed by politics. And to the point where I think a lot of people just, at some point, you kind of get burned out by all of the horrors around the world. And this has been, especially it seems the last 2 years, 6 years, whatever. So this book was, I wouldn't say escapist, but it was an attempt at a little bit of a respite. So there's a little more humor and a little more fantasy, perhaps, and a lot of language play. And so the word Tubbables is an old 1920s term for washable fabrics, washables because they had put them in the tub. And if you see this, oh, good, yes. Hey, Gail. Yeah. We're just starting, so yeah, okay. Oh, I know, yeah. There's a seat here if you like. And so Anna has this old-fashioned wringer washer with dinosaurs putting words through the washer and hanging them up on a clothesline. And many of these words are words that are in the dictionary section, the dictionary doggerel section at the beginning of the book, with etymologies. And anyway, so that's, and then the book has a section of reminiscences of childhood and adolescence called When We Were Young. And then it has the third section, which are just poems that don't fit anywhere else, but they all called sandwich wrappings, and they're again, I looked through the past 15 years or so of my poems and found the quirkiest, most bizarre ones that didn't fit in anything else. So anyway, so that's the outline of it. I'm going to read just the preface or prologue, which is called A Defense of Trifling Verse. And, I can think of my poetry teachers at University of Buffalo and so forth, just, like, oh, I was writing this crap. Anyway, but I'm enjoying it. So a prologue, or A Defense of Trifling Verse. And it begins with an epigram from William Blake's The Tiger, which you all know. When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears. And there was another epigram at the very beginning of the book I forgot to mention, which is from Yeats, The Stolen Child, which is about the fairies stealing a child, which they tended to do. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. And it's unusual because most of these, most of the old songs and poems had the fairies as horrible. They're stealing our children. This poem took the point of view of the fairies, like, kid, you're better off, right? Okay, so that's Blake and Yeats, and this is me. Because London Bridge is perpetually falling down, because no one can put Humpty Dumpty together again, because the cupboard was bare, because the old woman who lives in the shoe still doesn't know what to do, because 3 blind mice, because Mary is quite contrary, because along came a spider who sat down beside her, because the bough is breaking, because the sky may not be falling, but the polar ice is surely melting. And again, even the poems where I'm trying to escape, they don't. Yeah. Anyway, and I'm going to read just one more and then turn things over to Larry. And then I'll come back later, of course. But this one is from the dictionary section, and this is the double Tubbables. So this is the poem that explains the meaning of the book title. With a nod to James Joyce here. Called Double Tubbable. Whites and darks in the tubbable. Suds and spray and toil and suds and spray and toil. Let me start the whole thing over. Okay. Tongue twisters. Whites and darks in the tubbable. Suds and spray and toil and bubble. Pound on rock or play washboard trouble. Anna Livia pluribella gossips double. Splashes and sprays and tells, oh tells, does lovely Annabella. So, so anyway, I'm going to just do a brief intro to Larry Goodell is our, is the bard of Placitas, as I say. He's been here since the 1960s and with his Duende Press, currently housed at Yale University, the Beinecke. And Larry's a great friend and honored me with a blurb and preface. So he's going to come on, and then who did we say next was? Sorry, the list. Next will be Anna Latzer from Toronto. I mentioned the book designer, and then a very good friend from Rochester, New York, Kitty Jospé, who writes very language centered, very playful poems in several languages, and then last but certainly not least, Stuart A. Paterson from Scotland, and Stuart is an esteemed poet in his native country. Was the BBC poet in residence maybe a year or two ago, and again writes in both English and in Scots dialect. So so those would be the folks, and we'll start with Larry Goodell.
Yeah, I'm just making sure the randoms up here.
Thank you all very much. Tubbables by John Roche starts with a quote. This is a review I wrote. I'm going to read. Words are friends, and from their distance will return. That's a quote from Robert Duncan's Roots and Branches. I'm up to my ears in John Roche's new book, Tubbables, from Poetry Playhouse Publications. The crazy words and expressions in the first third are thoroughly entertaining. The poet surprises with a bridge to the very words you use, or words you forgot, or words you've rarely heard of, like Herkel, Durkel, or Shugum. I'm not the only one who's going to have trouble over it. He provides etymology followed by his own interesting trivialities or spin-offs. After that entertaining section, the book transcends into biographical poems, truly American story poems, family revelations with ancestral references, even back to the old country. The poems reveal that very common American orientation of childhood and younger years, but expressed through the exquisite ear of an original poet. In sandwich wrappings, the third section of Tubbables, there's a whole new kettle of fish with a Joycean flair for language and an approach towards science, Americana, politics, and our social world. The poems send you to the dictionary with some of the references with witty revelations of current reality, always informed by le mot juste from this poet's incisive perspective. There are references to social media and light wordplay, an amazing balance of the light and the profound. Poems can be meaningfully obscure and yet expressed in commonly ordinary words. The run of the poet's mind expands what any reader might expect and presents a poetry reality which is the utmost maturity as well as refreshing in the lighter poems. Poetry informs. John Roche's Tubbables informs, delights, and surprises. Poetry books pop up hourly across the U.S., but few can offer, as in this book, the verbal wit, the revealing biographical reality transformed through a rare poet's ear and internal linguistic revelations. Tubbables offers roots to old expressions, roots of the poet's family upbringing, and it exposes didactically the roots of our current world human malaise. The range of inspired expression in this book is amazing. All is based on the eye and the ear, the wit and the depth of a first-class poet. Tubbables is a must for any reader of American poetry today. And quickly, from my book, Firecracker Soup, poem for the 80s called Reagan Is, but I don't mind reading it now because every word starts with a D. Reagan is a dildo, a doorstop, a drip, a dungeon, a dodo, a deacon, a dunce, a dilly, a dork, a dupe, a dink, a dick, a dong, a drudge, a dingling, a dolt, a dimmer switch, a dime a dozen, a dyed in the wool, a dirigible, a dinkaroony, a deflatable, a demented, a decomposed, a doomaflitchy, a demagnetized, a desensitized, a discombobulated, a disimpaired, a disestablished, a disinclined, a deter, a disattached, a doorbell, a decal, a decoy, a dum-dum, a doomsday, a dilly-bob, a defecation, a deed, a dude, a dung, a diddlyburg, a dookie-doo, a diddly-poop, a dunky-dory, a dilly-dunker, a dispatch, a derelict, a dud, a dip, a din, a dad, a dead, a did, a done. Larry, that would certainly apply to somebody whose name starts with a D. Oh, really? But it's nice. Thank you so much. Okay.
All right, and next we're gonna have Anna. I'm gonna
Hello.
let you. All right, and then I'm gonna take this one. All right, I'm gonna turn you around so our studio audience can see you.
Okay, and I'll
Anna.
try not to look at them so that I won't get nervous.
Hey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. Like John said, I was a student at RIT in one of his poetry classes. And I was so happy to get to do this cover. I loved the book. It brought up a lot of feelings in me, both nostalgic and, you know, loving feelings, but also like a lot of sadness. But so I picked out a couple of my favorites. I have sticky notes, so I'm just going to read a couple. So the first one I picked out, one of my favorites, is My Grandmother's Hand. My grandmother's hands, chafed raw from cleaning, pink after pulling off the dish gloves in late winter kitchen light. I looking up at her as she hands me a cookie, gives me a gruff smile. Bing Crosby's on the radio, singing about the Emerald Isle, and Killarney, which is where Grandma says we came from. Then on comes the song Big John, which is my name, but I'm Little John. My dad is Big John, but he's not Big Bad John. And he doesn't work in a coal mine. I start to ask her about why Aunt Pearl doesn't visit anymore. She says Aunt Pearl has her own ways, and she gets your grandfather upset. I ask why, and she shrugs. Some people are just hard to be around. I think it comes from her living by herself all these years. I ask if anyone in our family works in a coal mine. She says, "What put that notion in your head? Not in a million years. Now finish your cookie. I've got work to do." So that's one. And then the other, it's pretty short, but it meant a lot to me as someone who likes to try to be creative myself, but puts a lot of stupid rules on myself. This one's called To Don't List for Poets. Number 1, you don't have to rhyme. Number 2, you don't have to count syllables. Number 3, you don't have to use stanzas. Number 4, you don't have to overthink it. Number 5, you don't have to please every audience. Number 6, you don't have to revise if you don't want to. Number 7, you don't have to publish. Number 8, you don't even have to write if you don't want to. Number 9, you don't have to have a have to. Number 10, you don't have to follow this advice. I really love that one as creative myself. Thank you so much for this chance to illustrate. I love the book.
Thanks so
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
All right, and then next up, we're gonna have Kitty Jospé. I'm gonna put Kitty up here, and she's from Rochester, New York. Some of you may know Kitty from some of our open mics.
Kitty is on the Fixed and Free Zoom a lot, and Billy Brown is here. So,
And
yeah.
if you also want to say the page number, we can follow along too.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Well, the note I wrote to John was, it's impossible to only pick 2 of these. I especially love the dictionary doggerel, and I almost picked abracadabra because everybody knows about the magic of poetry, and that's a really good one. But instead, I thought, given John's fondness of politics, it would be good to skip along to the letter Q, and that's on page 27. It's quacker wodger. Okay, so what is a quacker wodger? So John starts with a little dictionary definition. It is a wooden toy figure of a person whose limbs jerk wildly when you pull the string, often used to describe politicians and public figures. 1850s slang. The origins of the word quacker wodger are not known. That's from Word of the Day. And then his little jingle underneath. If you work for an artful dodger, you just might be a quacker wodger. Although we'd never point fingers or toss zingers, and we know some humdingers. We invite you, Mr. Congressman, to ask yourself, who made you their stinger? Even though you're an old codger, you still might be someone's quacker wodger. So but the whole section is like this. It's just so much fun. And I thought, well, just in case you think it's all fun, I would pick something from part 2. Thank you, Larry, for mentioning ancestral references. This is an ancestral reference poem. It's on page 47. What was your face before you were born? Look into your parents' faces in that 1952 wedding photo, Hartford, Connecticut. The one your father's not in, just your mother in her gown, with her sternly countenanced parents, happy-go-lucky sister, and confident brother in his Marine uniform. What can you tell from her nervous smile? Not so different from her smile decades later, who never liked to be photographed, always self-conscious about her weight. Her smile of pride in her boys, her relaxed beach smile when caught on Kodak, not the formally posed Polaroids, usually too busy in the kitchen to be in the casual deck or yard photos, her inner thoughts not open to the lens. Dad's more transparent, but he's not in the photo. Oh, thank you, John.
Thank you, Kitty. That was wonderful. And next I will bring up Stuart Paterson,
All the way from across.
all the way from across the pond. What is it, like 9 o'clock there or something? Or 9:30?
20 to 10, actually.
Okay. And this is
Oh
Stuart.
my God, I seem to be on the screen.
You can see us up here. All right.
I can see you if you can see me, but seeing me isn't always the best thing in the world. So, to introduce myself with a quick poem, people thought I was Scottish and cute till I opened my mouth and you undid mute. Sorry. And of course, I'm not the oldest Scottish boy actually here tonight. My pal Jill is here. Say hello to Jill, everybody.
Hey, Joe.
Hi.
And Jill, when I invited Jill along tonight, and I said it was in New Mexico, she immediately wrote a very short poem, which said, "Bugs Bunny went to Albuquerque. Thinking of that makes you smirk, eh?" There you go. There you go, Jill. You've got a round of applause in New Mexico. Now you can stay and you cannot go.
Thanks very much.
You're all right. You're actually welcome, Hen. I mean, and brilliant book to read. And I noticed somebody mentioned fairies earlier on, and they're not always good. And in Scotland, if somebody's a bit mad, we say, "Aye, they're away with the fairies." In other words, no, yes, not quite all here. And I loved the Regan, the poem about Regan, and all the words starting with D. In Scotland, we have 3 languages. We have English, we have Gaelic, and we have Scots. Scots languages is my first language. And one of our favourite words also starts with D, which is dreich, D-R-E-I-C-H. And if something's dreich, it usually refers to the weather. In other words, it's raining, it's cold, it's miserable, all right, it's Scottish. So dreich. And thank you so much for having me along, asking me to come along tonight. It was a brilliant book to read, and it's reading it. And I found myself, when I was reading that, I found myself actually speaking it out to myself or for an invisible audience, whatever. It was just such a great thing to read, as poetry should be, I think. Far too often it's inaccessible, it's intellectualized, but it should be for everybody. And this book, I think, really is for everybody. And I've already shown it to a couple of my pals, including Jill, up in Scotland in the past couple of days. And one of my pals read right through it in a day and said, "That's brilliant. That's what poetry should be about." So good on you, John. It's absolutely superb. The dictionary. What do you pick? I totally agree with Kitty. What do you pick? So much. And I've picked 2. Omnishambles. Excuse me, I'm going to swear, but fucking hell, what a great word. Omnishambles. And apologies, but I did say, I think earlier on, we're Scottish and swearing is indeed a part of our everyday language. So I'll try my best not to speak too much Scots. But omnishambles, and the introduction says, Heather Cox Richardson. It's an omnishambles, a word coined in 2009 by the writer of the BBC political satire, The Thick of It, meaning a situation, especially in politics, what a shocker, in which poor judgment results in disorder or chaos with potentially disastrous consequences. Which just about sums up politics in general for me. But here's the poem that he wrote about it. Omnishambles. Cheers, John. Yeah. One might say, for example, The Anthropocene is an omni-shambles. The omnivore tore through the house, leaving all an omni-shambles. The senator took a blowtorch to the omnibus bill, leaving all an omni-shambles. Get on board the omnibus, driven by Mr. Smooth It Away. With a wink and a smile, he'll take you omni-miles to the land of omni-shambles. I love it. I love it. It's brilliant. Oh, thank you. Rounds of applause. That'll be $5 each, by the way. Oh, no, I'm only joking. No, I'm only joking. It's actually $25 each. And the other word and poem, which I'm going to read, and I'm going to read it from my pal who's here from Scotland as well. Oh, she's up there somewhere. Oh, aye, there she is. Hiya, Jill. We were actually talking about this poem today, and Argle Bargle. And we remembered growing up that a great Scots phrase, argy bargy, which is actually mentioned in the introduction. And I'll read out the introduction, which comes from something called Word Genius. I don't know if that's a book or a person, but I'll read it out anyway. Like Whoopsie Daisy or Hurly Burly, Argle Bargle is an example of rhyming reduplication. When a new word is created by repeating a word or adding a second similar sounding word, Argle Bargle was based on the Scots word argle, meaning argue, but it took on the meaning of a verbal argument. Imagine being Scottish and having a verbal argument. My nickname's Stushy, by the way, and Stushy is another great Scottish word for an argument. That's my nickname. I don't know why. No, you do. I do. No, I don't. Sorry. Over time, Argle Bargle went from describing a multi-party argument to an expression of disdain for a copious volume of words that don't say much of anything at all. I love it. So this is John's great poem about Argle Bargle. Argle Bargle in the House, Argle Bargle in the Senate, Argle Bargle in the Parliament, Argle Bargle in the Delegate Assembly, Argle Bargle in the papers, Argle Bargle on CNN, Argle Bargle on NPR, Argle Bargle on talk radio, Argle Bargle on Twitter, X, Argle Bargle on Facebook, Argle Bargle on TikTok, Argle Bargle on 1,000 platforms. Used to be there was just human Argle Bargle. Now there's AI Argle Bargle. Maybe somewhere alien Argle Bargle. Oh no, that's England. Wait a minute. Argle Bargle, Argle Bargle, Argle Bargle. Spit it out. And just to finish up, as I say, my pal Jules here, and she did say that Bugs Bunny went to Albuquerque. Thinking of that makes you smirk, eh? So a wee round of applause for Jill as well. Come on. And thank you all so much for listening. Thanks for asking me along. It's been an absolute belter, as we say in Scotland, of an evening, and I'm really looking forward. Everybody's been brilliant, and I'm so looking forward as well to hearing John read the poem. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Wonderful.
Yeah. And Jill. Thank you, Jill. Yeah.
All right. And then John you can finish watching John. So we will get me back on here. All right. And this is all being recorded, so you can watch it later.
All right.
All right.
And yeah, thanks to all the readers. It was just a delight to, there's something about hearing your words in someone else's mouth that's always very interesting, and of course, hearing Argle Bargle in Stuart's voice really put the Scots into it. Yes, indeed. So a real delight. I'm not going to read a copious amount because we have cake we need to get to. But thankfully we have actually a non-windy day here in Placitas, and it's just lovely. Everything is starting to pop out. It was a long, extra long winter here, I think. And today's just beautiful. There's a chance of rain, which I guess is going to be after 5 o'clock or something, after we're over, hopefully. So is there so many people looking out there? No. Okay. Oh, we're just looking at the scenery. Okay. So anyway, thanks again to everybody who read. So I think I'll read a few poems from each of the sections. Quite a few of the dictionary poems have been written. I mean, have been spoken. So find one that's not.
Oh, I made a request for the one, what's the star or touch, on the website.
If you remember the, okay. This is a little, oh yeah, I'll do that later, yeah. So this is a little different tone, Eigengrau.
Page, please.
Page 15. I was looking. Eigengrau is a German loanword used to describe the specific color of total darkness as perceived by human eyes. So we don't see actual, darkness. We see it as a kind of the optic nerves discern pure darkness as a dark gray, sometimes called brain gray, or charcoal gray. And the German roots have it as your own gray, your intrinsic gray, your inside gray, which I thought was fascinating. So, yeah. So here's my little poem. No song for Eigengrau, no Edelweiss. Brain gray, every evening you greet me, not exactly gay, nor exactly melodic, but comforting that in darkness, we create our own light, our own gray, a pillow of Eigengrau. And oh, I got to do foo-for-ah, because I put that in some of my book signings. It's just a kind of fun. This is an American Wild West word, sometimes spelled differently, foo-for-ah, for-for-ow, frou-frou, and other things. It originally were referred to trinkets and baubles and gewgaws used in trade. And then it became 1930s. It became meant a fuss or a fight or a brouhaha. That brouhaha sounds Celtic, doesn't it? Okay, and then they think it came from a mishearing of the Spanish fanfaron, meaning braggart or boaster. Also, the French frou-frou, a word for the rustling of a woman's skirts. And another possible connection, the French expression for fou-faro, meaning foolish dandy. Who knows? Okay. That's the thing about etymologies, there's often 5, 10, 20 different etymologies, and who can say? All right, here's mine. One for all and all for the foo-for-ah. Get your gewgaws at the county fair. One for all and all for the razzle-dazzle. Frou-frou, 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 all for one and foo-for-oh. Where there's foo, there's fire. One for all and all for the foo-for-oh. Goo-goo, gajoob, goo-goo, gajoob, sing cuckoo. And it's no, nay, never, no, nay, never, no more. We've all gone with the raggle-taggle gypsies. Oh. Yeah. And I think I'll just do one more from this section. Gallimaufry, originally French mashup of galère, meaning have fun, and maffrère, which means to eat copious quantities in Picard, a Romance language. Okay, where is Picard? Anybody know? Somewhere in France, I guess. Okay. It once meant an unappetizing dish. This is page 20, by the way. It once meant an unappetizing dish, but now it means any jumble or mishmash of items or concepts. So this is, the book is kind of a gallimaufry. Eat your fill. Here's my poem. Eat your fill, gallivant through the dictionary, add whatever gallimaufry you choose. It's your gumbo. And I'm going to skip over Heffalump. You know that from Lewis Carroll. I'm just looking at the cover again. There's, you know, Diem Flume, Omni Shambles, Snolly Goster. There's all kinds of interesting words on the cover. Any exorcise. Okay. So we're going to move on to section 2, the when we were young section. And this is actually based on a real person whose name is slightly different. So she's a Republican. Last I Googled, she was a Republican councilwoman, so I don't want her suing me. So her name is slightly different from this. Anyway, it was a friend, daughter of a friend of my grandparents. And page 36, and the title is Penny, Hey Penny. I need to sit. Penny Hey Penny was a childhood friend who lived on Hey Penny Bridge on Penny Lane. Penny, we'd say, a penny for your thoughts. Penny would throw a penny over her shoulder and reply. Penny had too much sense to trade a pound for a pence. Penny always wore a mac in the pouring rain, though it seldom rains on Penny Lane. Penny left a bike lock on Hey Penny Bridge, wouldn't tell us who it was for. Penny Hey Penny left Penny Lane one morn, and her mum wouldn't tell us where or what for. Hey Penny, where have you been? Hey Penny, where have you been? Where have you been? So, you know, some of these, the next one, and you know, one of the earliest memory. I mean, some of my earliest memories are like being forced to take a nap, but you can't sleep because, you know, it's the afternoon and your mind just wanders. So I realized with, you know, that some of our sort of our creativity may have kind of been spurred by that, like how to fill the time and you're bored kind of thing. Yes. Anyway, this is the poem. It's called Nap Time. Dust motes float across the universe. 4 years old, not sleepy at all. Dust motes float, prism on the wall. Laughs and shrieks, kids playing outdoors. Dust motes float, fireflies appear. 4 years old, a portal opens. Yeah. So I guess probably my, you know, first psychedelic trip, right? This watching the dust boats. Anyway, and I tried. I'm not going to read these, but I tried a couple of, you know, couple little, you know, just a couple little poems using kind of Swedish and English or Irish and English, and just our cousin Anne-Marie in Sweden helped me with this one a bit. So anyway, sorry, Anne-Sophie Erickson. And but so you can read that over. I'm not going to even dare try that, you know, to read aloud. I will read the next one, 39, in the circus of my family. In the circus of my family, everyone spoke at once and was always on the go, and the uncles could talk themselves into the swankiest restaurant or the rooftop club at Churchill Downs just for a look-see. In the circus of my family, everyone fought over the check at the local pizzeria, but my teacher aunt always won, even if she had to sneak a 50 into the youngest nephew's pocket. In the circus of my family, my father was always late getting ready for mass, and my mother was always hurrying him along, but we always got there before the sermon, so it wouldn't be a mortal sin. In the circus of my family, extended family dinners could explode into the portrait of the artist Christmas dinner scene and Joyce. And my mom once left us for 2 days after a harangue over her youngest being allowed to watch Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. My grandfather started that fight. Okay. In the circus of my family, John Fitzgerald Kennedy and John the 23rd held coveted spots on the wall. Bing Crosby's Irish Christmas album could be played all year long, and we believed in light one candle rather than curse the darkness, which was the theme of a TV show. Yeah. So this is I guess must be the nostalgic part of the book. Okay, so I'm gonna read the one Genealogy 101. It's one of the few long poems, 2+ pages. But after my aunt died, the one that was always sneaking money to us, and now I'm so angry. She died of COVID, sadly, and so then I started getting really interested in family history because, of course, the last person who could tell us, and it was like, where was that interview that somebody tape recorded 20 years ago or 30 years ago, and nobody could find anything. So I started doing some of that. So this is what I discovered, called Genealogy 101. 1. Forget what Ancestry.com tells you. Ignore what Family Search or MyHeritage have to say. Listen to your Irish grandma, who's been in her grave these 50 years. She had a hard life. He had a hard life. Ah, sure, they had hard lives, the lot of them. Either they were poor or they were sickly, or else they were poor and sickly. Either they gave in to their passions and brought scandal down upon their heads and on their family's name, or they took care of their aging parents, living their own small lives on cold cots. Either they survived the coffin ships to get to a strange new world, or else their corpses were thrown to the sharks, or else they stayed in the old country and starved. Either they wandered foreign streets with mouths agape, or they thought of their children an ocean away. Either they worked long hours in factories, mines, woolen mills, or silk works, or else they dug ditches and built bridges and subways until maybe a cousin could get them a city job, maybe even streetcar conductor or cop. Either they cleaned the mansions of the Yanks and served as maids and cooks, or else they left those mansions after abuse and maybe left town ruined. Either they took in laundry or they took in boarders, likely both, and maybe a son or daughter could get a job in the shops or as a typist or bank clerk. Either they knew an old trade like carpenter or blacksmith or cigar roller, or maybe learned a new one like electrician or plumber. Either they died of the Spanish flu or were wounded in the Great War or died from tainted milk or meat, or died in childbirth, sorry, page 40, or died in childbirth, or died when a spleen ruptured or the heart gave out. Or they worked and worked and worked so their children could become teachers and firemen, shopkeepers, and insurance execs. 2. What you'll find if you dig is they lied about their age to the census takers, so the older they got, the younger they were. What you'll find are lots of discrepancies in names spelled every which way, and even errors in obituaries and on tombstones. That surprised me. You'll find there's plenty no one will talk about, least of all your dead granny. Missing marriage records, missing records of all kinds, questionable bloodlines, lots of half-brothers and half-sisters, a great-grandma who married 2 brothers, that's true, not at the same time, of course. 2 brothers married to 2 sisters, also true. And all the men seem to be named John Francis or William Francis or maybe Patrick Joseph, with the occasional Owen or Jeremiah. And all the women seem to be named Mary Margaret or Margaret Mary, or else Bridget, which might become Bess or Bessie or Brie. And nobody can say who the old guy living in your grandparents' attic was. the one who would give a nod of his handicap to all the family as he headed to the pub. And your uncle says Jack was a cousin or something from back in the old country. And you discover all these decades later, his name was John Francis Roche, same as yours. Yeah. Which was also my father's name. And oh, I can't, I'll just do, yeah. 43, family lore. The time this is a family lore. The time young Uncle Bill's feet came through grandma's ceiling when she was having tea with the ladies in her living room. The time Ma's cousin Richie got coal in his stocking, the Aunt Pearl dinner shouting match, the FDR pro and con argument between my two grandpas on the front porch. Here it is, the Mary Hartman dinner shouting match. The time Aunt Barbara's gift check got thrown out with the Christmas wrapping it was taped to. The time Brother Kevin almost cut his finger off on a toy fire engine. The time the firecrackers exploded and Brother Paul's chest popped up. And Kevin and Paul were just down here a week ago celebrating my 70th birthday. So that was nice. That was fun. And I'm gonna switch over to oh, I gotta do this. We're gonna switch from the nostalgic part to the anyway. This is called Kissing Auntie May, page 56. Kissing Auntie May. When you were very young, in the tall seal, my writing group members are chuckling. Okay. When you were very young, in the tall ceiling parlor of your grandparents' Victorian house, and you were told to go over to a high-backed chair and kiss Aunt So-and-so, who sat half embalmed in her mink stole, with the small creature's claws and head enveloping Auntie's shoulders in a perpetual to the death scorn. And the first thing that greets you before you notice the map of liver spots and the varicose veins, and before she says something like, "Come kiss your old auntie, I don't bite," is the stench of camphor mixed with chrysanthemum, barely masking the smell of decay. Anyway, and I'm gonna change the tone again. Armistice Day, page 59. We watched or we marched every November 11th, and it was always raining or snowing or darkly foreboding. We marched as Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, as Boys Brigaders and Girls Brigaders, as 4-H'ers and Rotarians, or played in fife and drum corps and athletic bands. We watched the Shriners in their comical midget cars, the corpulent governor's foot guard in their crimson coats and bearskin hats, the ruddy-faced Knights of Columbus and Masons and Elks, the nurses from the local hospitals, the gleaming red fire trucks, the veterans walking with canes or pushed in their wheelchairs, each sporting medals and a lapel poppy, all of us for an hour doing our best to ignore the rain or snow or November gloom hanging over each town's memorial to the dead of the Great War, ignoring too the newspaper headlines containing Asian place names we couldn't pronounce. This had, of course, been about 64, 65. And as I said, the things come back. They're trying to escape. The next page, page 60, is after a line by Blas de Otero. And the line is, "A tiny glimmer in the day, a specific day, Monday," when my poem starts. "There were roses that I recall and bullets I heard but didn't see, and never knew who to lay in the road with a bunch of lace at his throat. I never heard the drum, never got the call, never marched off to Verdun or Vietnam. Just a Monday in Manhattan, or was it Dublin or Dallas or Brussels? Just another day with tiny glimmers, budding roses, unspecified promises, until we heard the guns. until we heard the guns. And a little bit of a lighter, a lighter one, since it's 420, which I don't really celebrate anymore. But anyway, but this I did back then. This is I was thinking actually the first time I ever smoked pot was 4/20/1970 on the first Earth Day on the Washington Mall. So this is on page 62. Deal and Al. Every school had somebody like Deal and Al. A dream has me recall Al, Army surplus clad Al, my first pot dealer a year behind me at South Catholic, a month after I first smoked grass at the first Earth Day in DC, as the Chamber Brothers sang, "Time has come today." Al and me wandering the streets of Hartford, always cloudy and drizzly in retrospect, before his shift at the ShopRite, a lost brigade of two. Okay. Yeah, and I'm gonna try the one on 65. And there's a couple of Gaelic expressions that I'm going to butcher. But anyway, Nakalini Bandarga means the pink girls. And in the Duolingo thing, they're always contrasted with the gray women, the pink girl, Anyway, so it's sexist Duolingo. But anyway, to be young at the beach or at some mountain camp, singing songs, making banter with the Colony Bandarga, listening to ghost stories around the campfire with the Colony Bandarga, sharing a joint and a bottle of Johnny Jump Up with the boys, the Bukali and the Colony Bandarga, sharing a sleeping bag in your dreams, or at least the soft grass under a shady tree with the Colony Bandarga. Hair short or long, blonde, brunette, red or black. No inkling of the gray men and women we become. The pink girls of youth were always in our dreams. Okay. And then I'll end this section. This one ends this section. Dr. Peppa's wash tub band. Zip, zip, zip goes the washboard vest. Thud, thud, thud goes the wash tub drum. Dwa, 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 says the wash tub bass. Wah, boo, says the whiskey jug. Jinga, jinga, wah, wah, tubba, tubba. Kazoo, kazoo. The place is jumping every Saturday night with Dr. Peppa's wash tub band. Kind of about this, right? And Jules asked, moving on to the, I'm just going to do a couple more, right? I'm getting late. Yeah. We'll start the first one in this section, Dear Poet on Another Planet. What's the atmosphere like? Do you get any snow, or is it red dust everywhere in your nose, in your ears, in your eyes, red dirt clogging your boat hills? Do you sing your body electric, sing silicone anthems, or do you write odes to webbed anatomies? Does it get lonely on your planet? Are there other poets? Can you see Earth rising in your night sky? Is there any beacon that moves your alien heart? And I think I'm going to do two more. Jules requested page 73. I stole an eclipse, since there was one recently. There have been two, because we had a really good one back in October here. I stole an eclipse today, rode a snapping turtle all the way to San Luis Obispo, climbed an agave stalk taller than an oak, higher than the campanile, held up the sun with my BB gun, put it in my back pocket, ate a tangerine, kicked a soccer ball to the moon, listened to the music of the spheres, watched as it ricocheted through the galaxy, rode vampire fish sailing celestial seas, le clair de lune, and composed a sonnet. And end with one. I'm just going to end with page 119. Virtual reality check. Sorry, friends, but even your best poem won't get nearly as many likes as two koala cubs grooming a tabby on top of a roof, or a bobcat lounging on somebody's patio. Thank you all, thank you. And our studio audience, and thank you all at home and across the pond.
Virtual cake.
Yeah, virtual cake. Ciao, all right. Thanks. all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you,
y'all.